The Sonos Arc has been a frontrunner in the Dolby Atmos soundbar category ever since it made its debut way back in 2020, picking up multiple awards, including Best Soundbar in its price range at the What Hi-Fi Awards every year since its launch so far, and picking up Product of the Year last year as well. But with the competition getting tighter and tighter every year with new models and technology launching, we keep getting asked the same question all the time. Is the Arc still a worthwhile investment in 2023? Or do we see a replacement on the horizon? Let's find out. Hey guys, Louis from Smart Home Sounds here, and if you've come here for the short answer on whether you should take the plunge with the Arc right now, then truthfully, this is still a very credible purchase in 2023, and to be honest, I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. So if it fits your budget and you think it would be a good fit, then go for it. And if Messi in the MLS is anything to go by, then there's definitely still a lot left to give. Now, that's not to say that there's not still some pretty tough competition for the Arc right now. We've got soundbars like the Sennheiser Ambio Plus and the Sony HD-A7000. They're also really solid options, and the Nakamichi Dragon is currently flying off the shelves. Now, we will be doing an ultimate Dolby Atmos soundbar comparison video very soon, so if you're torn, then make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that one. And let me know in the comments below what soundbars you'd like to see included. Now, as I said, I don't think that the Arc will be getting an upgrade this year, but I do think that Sonos will be looking to bring out an Arc 2 in the not too distant future, but I'll come back to my predictions on that a little later on. But for now, let's talk about why I think the Arc is still a solid purchase in 2023. Now, we've got absolutely loads of content on our channel for this soundbar that you guys can watch if you want to go really in depth here, but in terms of performance and flexibility from a standalone soundbar, it's really hard to argue with the Arc. It delivers exceptional Dolby Atmos performance from its 11 driver array, which is ideal for pretty much every application. And it also looks great too with that unique elliptical design, and the Sonos multi-room and app functionality really is second to none. It handles both movies and music really well, and the overall immersion that you get from a standalone bar is pretty impressive. Now, from our testing, we found the Arc to deliver dynamic, accurate and clear audio, and in terms of its relative price point, it still ranks as one of the very best. Now, we all know that Sonos love to innovate their products. We've seen them upgrade the Beam back in 2021, the Play 1 to Sonos 1 to Era 100, and the average upgrade life cycle seems to sit around about 4 years, with the Beam being a bit shorter at 3. Though the Arc's predecessor, the Play Bar, was around for 7 years before being replaced by the Arc. So I don't think there's a set formula, and really, I think it comes down to how fast tech is evolving and how much the product is crying out for an upgrade to compete in its market. For me, I don't think the Arc is quite there yet. It's still competing very well in its category and delivering a great performance at its price point. And actually, we're seeing some pretty good deals on the Arc floating around. So if you can pick it up at a good price point, then that's going to give you an even better bang for your buck. Especially as I don't see a new generation Arc coming in cheap. It's likely to be the same as we saw with the Beam, where there was actually a slight price increase with the Gen 2. So rumours of an Arc 2 have been floating around for a while now, and lots of you guys have reached out asking if we would suggest grabbing an Arc now, or if it's worth holding off for that rumoured new model, which is why I wanted to make this video for you guys. And because we love a little bit of speculation just as much as all of you in the comments and in the Sonos forums, I've had a little bit of a think about what I would want to see in an Arc 2 and the things that I would want to see upgraded to tempt me to upgrade in the future. Now, I've narrowed it down to 5, but as always, get in the comments and let me know what you'd want to see. And who knows, maybe Sonos will be having a little read too. Of course, before we get into it, guys, I just want to make a big disclaimer and remind you that anything that we mention during this video is purely our own speculation, and it doesn't actually represent what we're going to see from Sonos later down the line. We've based all of this on the rumours and evidence that is currently accessible on the internet, and of course, what we know about the Arc, to take a guess at what we think might change with a new model. In my opinion though, if and when Sonos does decide to upgrade, I don't see it being a full-scale refresh. Having owned countless Sonos products over the years, I just don't see the need for a complete overhaul. I think if anything's going to happen, my gut is telling me it will be something similar to the Sonos Beam upgrade, leaving us with a Sonos Arc Gen 2 of some sort. I don't think the design will change too much. The form factor will remain pretty similar, maybe getting ever so slightly more compact. I reckon more of the focus will be on the blending in of some of those subtle ergonomic improvements that we've seen in the Era releases, like the sleek volume slider and things like that, to just give it a general update and keep it ahead of its latest competitors. So, if we're not expecting much to change externally, what about internally? Well, This is where I think a refresh could get really interesting. Like I mentioned earlier, I've highlighted 5 features that I'd love to see on a new and improved Sonos Arc to make sure it remains at the top of its game. So let's get into them. First up, starting with a pretty easy win for Sonos, it would be great to see some Bluetooth connectivity from a Sonos soundbar. We've seen it introduced to some of their wireless speakers with the Era 100 and 300, and although it's not my go-to choice of connection, I think Sonos sees this as a new standard for all of their products moving forward. I don't think that's because they believe it delivers the best experience overall, but I think after years and years of the community asking for it, they've recognised that there's a genuine demand for the extra versatility. A lot of other big soundbars on the market are equipped with Bluetooth, like the Sennheiser Ambio Plus, Samsung HWQ990C, or Sony HD A7000 to name a few. And it only makes sense for Sonos to follow suit here, especially if they're already doing it with other speakers in their range. And there's nothing wrong with having options, and if it means more people can enjoy the soundbar, then it's a no-brainer for me. While we're on the topic of connectivity, for pretty similar reasons, I do think that we'll also get enhanced Wi-Fi 6 functionality with this one too. Based on the way the Era releases went, again, I think this is their new sort of standard. I don't reckon there will be any Sonos net. Instead, I think a new Arc will be betting on that Wi-Fi 6 connectivity from now on too, and also Matter in the coming years. Sticking with what we've seen from the Sonos Era releases, another big thing that I would like to see from a new Sonos Arc is the new version of Sonos's room optimization software. Now, for a long while, Sonos had only offered TruePlay tuning for iOS users, which uses the microphones of your iOS device to listen to how sound reflects in your room and adjusts your speaker's output accordingly. Now, thankfully, Android users have finally been able to get in on the act with the new quick tuning feature available on the Era 100 and Era 300, which is a step in the right direction, albeit still a less effective form of room optimization. I think, at the very least, a new Sonos Arc has to have quick tuning for sure, which, based on the way things are going, I think is pretty certain. However, it would be great to see either a further optimized form of Android tuning or maybe even a completely automated version of advanced TruePlay. Now, I've just reviewed the Sennheiser Ambio Plus, and that soundbar used completely automatic room optimization software that didn't need me to walk around the room and wave my hands in the air, and it worked really well. So it would be really great to see if Sonos could implement something like that in the future. Admittedly, it might be wishful thinking, but if Sonos really wants to compete on all fronts, then these are the sorts of things that I think would make a world of difference. Right then, on to something a little bit more performance-based with feature number 3. I think that we need to be seeing some updated internals. Now, I know that that sounds obvious, but I think there's a couple of areas in particular that could do with some enhancement. First and foremost, I think an Arc 2 is bound to have an upgraded processor. It's going to be a new soundbar with new capabilities, so improved processing power is almost a given. Along with that though, like we mentioned earlier, the Arc has slowly been caught up by other competitors, especially when it comes to the effectiveness of its overhead and side sound effects. Now, that's not to say that it's not immersive, it's still a brilliant option, it's just not the clear class leader it once was. And that's why I see Sonos really striving to set things straight with their next model. Whether it's an improvement to the physical design of the drivers themselves or some enhancement to the way the soundbar processes its surround channels, I can see this being a big focus for Sonos as and when it comes to it. Now, of course, we've also got the benefits of the upward firing rears now in the shape of the Sonos Era 300, so it'll be interesting to see which route Sonos goes down to really elevate the immersive potential of their Atmos speakers when paired together. Sticking with the idea of widening the gap with its competitors, I can see the next Sonos Arc getting a decent upgrade to its center channel too. Now, we saw that with the Sonos Beam Gen 2, which received an improved center tweeter when it was released to really kick the clarity of dialogue and vocals up a notch. And that change definitely helped to push it much closer to the Arc in that department. Now, despite this being a big plus for the Beam, I see this as something that Sonos will want to sort out and reopen that gap between the two soundbars once again. This is their flagship after all, so they want it to be the very best that it can be. Now, it would be quite nice to see a little upgrade in the Arc's low end too, and we've gone on record highlighting this as somewhere that Arc could improve if it wants to remain as a perfect all-in-one soundbar option for those looking for a complete home cinema setup with an additional subwoofer. So hopefully Sonos would be able to follow in the Era 100's footsteps and upgrade the bass on this one too. Obviously, I'm not looking for a huge subwoofer, especially if it means getting an even bigger soundbar, but something to boost the depth and realism of sound effects to really take the immersion to the next level wouldn't go amiss. I think though, ultimately with this one, Sonos is gonna want those of us who have already bought the Sonos Arcs to get the next one too. So they've got to be doing something audio-wise to make it worthwhile, which sounds nothing short of exciting to me. Feature number 4 then is something that I've got a little less faith in seeing, and that's some additional HDMI 2.1 pass-throughs. Now, for those of you that don't know, these basically allow users to connect source devices directly to the Arc rather than to your TV if you haven't got enough HDMI 2.1 inputs there. Now, I'm a little bit more skeptical about this one because Sonos has regularly shut down any talk of extra inputs, reiterating their commitment to keeping things stripped back and simple by only offering one audio connection on its products. But still, with so many devices now needing a HDMI input and TV brands not really carrying the burden, a lot of other soundbar manufacturers out there have adjusted to the demand. So why haven't Sonos? It's getting so normal nowadays for a single household to have a games console, an Apple TV 4K and a 4K Blu-ray player with one HDMI used up by the soundbar, meaning that you're looking pretty limited about what else you can add, if anything. Now, I'd be pretty happy with just one HDMI 2.1 pass-through on the Arc with support for 4K 120Hz and VRR, and I think a lot of you guys would too. There's just something in my gut that doesn't see it happening. But hey, I didn't expect Sonos to go down the Bluetooth route either, so I could be wrong. I suppose we just have to keep our fingers crossed. The final feature then is one that I know a lot of you guys have been crying out for a while now, and that's full DTS support. Now, as one of the biggest rivals of Dolby Atmos, although not as widely used, DTS-X is a big miss from all of the Sonos soundbars at the minute, and it's kind of a guaranteed one-up for a lot of the other soundbar manufacturers out there. Sonos have obviously been thinking about it because there was a firmware update back in 2021 that did give our soundbars DTS capacity, but only in its compressed form, not the full lossless DTS-X or DTS HDMA formats, which was a shame. It would be great if an Arc 2 could finally bridge that gap between those who use all platforms by giving them the best support available. Now, for me personally, I think the more support you can provide, the more people you attract to the brand, which sounds like a good strategy to me. Anyway though guys, like I said, this is all speculation and it's just an idea of what we could expect from a new version of the Sonos Arc if one is on the horizon. But I think ultimately, right now, the Arc itself is here to stay, and I think it's still a great purchase in 2023, especially if you can get your hands on one at a relatively good price point. Then I wouldn't really get too bogged down in wondering what if, because let's be honest, in a tech industry where things are moving so fast, that would mean that we would never enjoy our products as there could always be something better. The Sonos Arc is a great soundbar and it will stay that way for years to come, regardless of whether an Arc 2 is available or not. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think and what you'd like to see from a new generation Sonos Arc. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one and I'll catch you all next time.